drive-through line at the Tim Hortons on Upper James Street had 7 cars in it, and Reed Gallagher was sixth, and his daughter Cora was asleep in the back seat with her cheek pressed against the window and her breath making a small circle of fog on the glass. It was the first Tuesday in November, and the sky over Hamilton had that particular gray that meant snow before midnight. Reed had $11.40 in his checking account. He knew this because he had checked it twice in the parking lot of the lumber yard before pulling out. The way a man checks a wound he already knows is there. In his jacket pocket was a layoff notice, printed on company letterhead that still smelled like the copier. Seasonal reduction. Last day, Friday. He had been expecting it since October, but expecting a thing and holding the paper are not the same experience. The car ahead of him, a beige Corolla with a cracked taillight, had been sitting at the speaker for longer than it should have. He could see the driver's arm moving, then her window went down, and she leaned out, said something to the speaker he couldn't hear, and pulled her arm back inside. The car didn't move. He waited. A voice on the speaker said something flat and patient. The Corolla's brake lights flickered. Then the woman got out. She walked to the speaker, holding her phone in one hand and a bank card in the other. And she tried the card again by holding it near the reader. Nothing. She tried a second card. The reader beeped the way readers beep when they have decided against you. From the back seat of the Corolla, a small voice said something. A child. Maybe 5. Reed pulled his truck forward until his bumper was a foot from hers. He rolled down his window. Hey, what's the order? She turned. Dark hair pulled back, no hat, no gloves, a coat that was not warm enough for November in Hamilton. It's just 2 hot chocolates and a bagel. My cards aren't, I'm sorry, I'll move. Stay there. He leaned out and spoke to the box. Her order and a large double-double, on one bill. The total was $9.87. He tapped his card and did the math without wanting to. $1.53 remaining. Rent was due in 11 days. She came to his window. She had the look of a woman who was deciding between gratitude and something harder than gratitude. Thank you. I'll pay you back. I mean it. Don't worry about it. I mean it. I know you do. Don't worry about it. She stood there for a beat, then nodded once and walked back to her Corolla. He did not look at her again. He picked up his coffee at the window, drove home, carried Cora inside without waking her, and put her to bed in her clothes because she looked peaceful and he did not have the heart to disturb that. If you believe that one small moment of kindness can change the direction of a life, stay with us. What happens to Reed Gallagher next will stay with you. The duplex on Gage Avenue had been Jennifer's choice. She had liked the street because of the maple tree out front. The one that turned the color of a blood orange every October and dropped its leaves in a single weekend, as though it had made a decision. Reed had liked it because the rent was low enough that they could save, and because the upstairs neighbor, an elderly Portuguese woman named Mrs. Faria, made soup on Sundays and left a container on their doorstep without being asked. Jennifer had been dead for 2 years and 8 months. Ovarian cancer, diagnosed late, moved fast. She had been 34. Cora had been 5. Reed had been an engineer at Bridgewater Structural Associates, downtown Hamilton, pulling a salary that could carry a mortgage and a registered education savings plan, and a weekend trip to Port Dover in the summer. After the funeral, he had taken 3 months off, then 6. Then he had stopped counting. The firm had kept his desk for him longer than they needed to. His supervisor, a man named Hadhad, had called once a month for almost a year before the calls turned quarterly, and then stopped. Reed did not blame him. The work required a kind of precision that lived in a part of the brain he could no longer reach. The numbers still made sense. The will to use them did not. He had taken the job at the lumber yard because it started at 7 and ended at 3, and Cora's school bus arrived at 3:42. He could be on the porch when the bus door opened. That was the architecture of his life now. Everything else was negotiable. Cora was 8. Brown hair, serious eyes, a gap where her left canine had come out 3 weeks ago that she had inspected in the mirror with the critical focus of a jewelry. She collected rocks, not special rocks, any rocks. The windowsill above the kitchen sink had 41 of them, lined up by size, each one with a name she had assigned based on a system she had not explained, and he had not asked about, because he understood that some systems are not meant to be explained. On the Wednesday after the Tim Hortons, Reed was at the kitchen table with the laptop open, looking at job postings the way a person looks at a menu in a language they used to speak. Cora was doing her reading log at the other end of the table. The book was about a girl who lived on a farm with a goat who could predict the weather. Daddy. Yeah. Is the goat right about the rain, or is the girl right? What does the goat think? The goat thinks it's going to rain. The girl thinks it's going to be sunny. Who's been outside more? She thought about it. The goat. Trust the goat. She nodded and wrote something in her log. His phone buzzed. Unknown number, 905 area code. He answered. Mr. Gallagher, my name is Elise Thornton. You helped me at a drive-through last night on Upper James. I'd like to return what I owe you. He almost said, don't worry about it again, but something in her voice made him pause. It was not the voice of a woman calling about $9.87. It was the voice of a woman who had prepared what she was going to say. You don't owe me anything. I understand that. I'd still like to meet. There's a reason, and I'd rather explain it in person. He looked at Cora. She was drawing a goat in the margin of her reading log. I'm not sure what this is about. It's about a bridge, Mr. Gallagher, and the man who designed how to keep it standing. The line was quiet for a moment. I didn't design a bridge. No. You designed the method for reinforcing one, specifically, the one published in the Canadian Journal of Civil Engineering in 2019. The retrofit assessment protocol for post-tensioned concrete spans under seismic and load cycle stress. He had not heard anyone say those words in over 3 years. The paper had been written in the second bedroom of this apartment, late at night, while Jennifer slept, in the months before the diagnosis. It had been, in its quiet way, the best work of his career. How do you know about that paper? Because someone is using it against me, and I think you're the only person who understands it well enough to stop them. They met on Saturday morning at a diner on Barton Street called The Lucky. It was the kind of place that had been open since 1974 and had never changed its menu or its light fixtures, and both were better for it. She was already seated when he walked in. Dark hair, no makeup, a gray wool coat folded over the back of the chair. He sat across from her. I owe you a hot chocolate and a bagel, she said. You owe me nothing. The waitress came. He ordered coffee, black. She ordered tea and didn't touch it. My father was Graham Thornton. He founded Thornton Row Engineering in 1991. We build and maintain bridges, overpasses, and highway infrastructure across southern Ontario. 312 employees. My father died 5 months ago. Heart attack at his desk on a Thursday afternoon. She said it the way people say it when they have said it many times and have learned to say it without the room tilting. I inherited the firm. I was chief operating officer. I've been running day-to-day for 3 years, but the ownership transition triggered an external review, and that review opened a door that a company called Hargrove Partners has been trying to walk through for 18 months. Reed drank his coffee. He did not ask questions yet. We built the Stony Creek Bypass Bridge in 2017, $38 million, the largest municipal infrastructure contract in Hamilton's history. We used a retrofit reinforcement protocol that your paper documented the following year. You didn't design the bridge, but the method we used to future-proof the load-bearing spans. The reason that bridge will last 100 years instead of 60 came directly from your research. She paused. Hargrove Partners wants to acquire Thornton Row. They've been pressuring our board through a minority shareholder who bought in 2 years ago. Their argument is that the Stony Creek Bridge has a structural liability, that the retrofit protocol was experimental, that it wasn't peer-reviewed at the time of construction, and that the long-term load projections are unreliable. They're pushing for an independent engineering audit. If the audit triggers a liability reclassification, our insurance costs triple overnight. At that point, the board has a fiduciary argument to sell. She looked at him. I have engineers. I have lawyers. But none of them wrote the protocol. None of them can defend it at the level of detail an audit would require. You can. Miss Thornton. I work at a lumberyard. I know. I stack 2x4s and load delivery trucks. I'm home by 3:42. That's my life. I'm not the person who wrote that paper anymore. She did not lean forward. She did not plead. The Stony Creek Bridge carries 41,000 vehicles a day. Under it, there's a neighborhood of 900 homes. If Hargrove acquires my firm and reclassifies the bridge, the maintenance schedule changes. The load monitoring stops. In 5 years, maybe sooner, something shifts, not because the bridge is weak, because the people responsible for watching it no longer care whether it stands. She stood up. She pulled on her coat. I didn't find you because of your paper. I found you because a man with $11 to his name paid for a stranger's hot chocolate at a Tim Hortons and drove away without looking back. If the man who wrote the paper and the man at the drive-thru are two different people, I'm sorry to have bothered you. She put a $10 bill on the table. He noticed she had to look for it. She caught him noticing. My father's accounts are frozen pending probate. Everything personal is in review. I carry what I can. She walked out. He sat there for 8 minutes. The waitress refilled his coffee. He paid for both with a handful of coins from the cup holder in his truck. That night, after Cora was in bed, he opened the laptop. He typed Stony Creek, Bypass Bridge, Hargrove. He read for 40 minutes. The shape of the attack came into focus the way weather comes over the escarpment. Slowly, then all at once. Public letters from a shareholder group citing structural risk. 2 op-eds in the Hamilton Spectator from an independent engineer, whose firm, when you followed the chain, had taken consulting fees from a Hargrove subsidiary for 6 of the last 8 years. A motion in front of the Public Works Committee requesting an expedited audit. Every piece positioned to look like public safety concern. Every piece designed to create the conditions under which a forced sale became the responsible choice. Reed sat at the window for a long time. He did the math. 41,000 vehicles a day. 900 homes in the shadow of the spans. He thought about the load cycle projections he had run at midnight in this apartment in 2018, when the numbers were still alive in his hands, and the woman he loved was asleep in the next room. And he had believed, without knowing he believed it, that careful work could hold the world together. The next morning, he called the number she had left on a napkin tucked under the $10 bill. She picked up on the second ring. I'll look at the file, he said. I'm not committing to anything past that. There was a breath on the other end, not relief. Something more careful than relief. Saturday, 7 in the morning. I'll send the address. She hung up. He went to the bedroom, opened the closet, and looked at the shelf above the hanging rod. There was a box up there he had not opened since the month after the funeral. Inside was a set of technical drawing instruments in a leather case that Jennifer had given him the year he passed his P-Engine exam. He did not take them down. He looked at them for 3 seconds, then closed the closet door, and went to make Cora breakfast. She came into the kitchen in her penguin pajamas, and sat down at the table with the air of a person who had been awake for a while and had been waiting for the appropriate moment to appear. Daddy. Morning Peanut. Are you going somewhere today? Not today. Saturday, maybe. A different kind of work, just for a little while. Good different or bad different? He poured her orange juice. I think good different. She studied him with the unblinking honesty of an 8-year-old who has learned that adults do not always say what they mean, and who has decided to love them anyway. Okay, she said. The offices of Thornton Row Engineering were on the fourth floor of a sandstone building on King William Street, 3 blocks from the harbor. The conference room had no nameplate on the door. Inside, the table was walnut, old, scarred in places where someone had set down a protractor too hard, and the window looked out over a rail yard and past that, the western edge of the lake. Elise was already there when Reed walked in at 7 on Saturday. Beside her sat a man in his mid-60s, lean, silver-haired, with reading glasses on a cord around his neck, and the particular stillness of someone who has spent decades listening before speaking. "Reed, this is Victor Embry. He was my father's chief structural analyst for 26 years. There's nothing in this firm he hasn't touched and nothing he carries that he hasn't earned." Embry extended his hand. The grip was dry and precise. "Mr. Gallagher, I've read your paper 4 times, once for the math, twice for the logic, and once because I couldn't believe someone that young had seen that clearly." Reed shook his hand and sat down. Elise pushed 3 binders across the table. Blue, red, green. The blue held Hargrove's filings. The red held the original Stony Creek engineering records. The green held 14 months of board correspondence and shareholder communications. Reed read for 2.5 hours. He read the way Embry had suspected he would. No notes, no highlights. Pages turned at irregular intervals. Eyes stopping on numbers the way a musician stops on a wrong note in an orchestra. He closed the 3rd binder. "You have someone inside." Elise did not move. "Your vice president of operations, Gagnon." 3 of the documents Hargrove cited in their public filings contain data that only existed in internal reports signed off by 4 people. 2 of those people are dead. 1 is Embry. The 4th is Gagnon. Embry. The 4th is Gagnon. Embry didn't send them. That leaves 1 name. Embry set his tea down. The ceramic click was the only sound in the room. "I need the server logs for Gagnon's workstation," Reed said. "Outbound attachments. Last 12 months. Elise looked at Embry. Embry looked at his hands. "It'll be done by Monday," Embry said. That night, there was a knock at 328 Gage Avenue at 9:45. Reed opened the door. Embry stood on the porch in a dark overcoat, a manila envelope under one arm. "I apologize for the hour. May I come in?" Reed let him in. Embry sat on the edge of the sofa the way a man sits when he does not intend to stay but knows what he has to say will take longer than he wants it to. "Mr. Gallagher, I owe you something I didn't offer this morning. I know who you are, not only from the paper." Reed looked at him. "In 2017, before we broke ground on the Stony Creek bypass, I attended a symposium in McMaster. You were on a panel. Load cycle modeling for post-tension retrofits. You spoke for 18 minutes. I took 4 pages of notes. When I came back, I told Graham Thornton that we should hire the man who gave that talk. He said he'd already tried. Your firm wouldn't release you." He opened the envelope. Inside was a photocopy of a leather-bound notebook. The handwriting small and careful, the kind that belongs to a man who understood that words on paper are a form of architecture. On the 3rd page, circled twice in blue ink, "Gallagher, retrofit protocol, before Hargrove files." Graham started writing this 11 months ago. He contacted 3 engineering consultants in Toronto. All 3 had financial ties to Hargrove or its subsidiaries. He couldn't use any of them. Your name was the only clean name on his list. Embry looked at his hands. "He called your old firm in August. They told him you had left the profession. He asked me to find your number. I found it on October the 3rd. He died on October the 11th. He never made the call." Reed sat very still. Graham Thornton had a full physical in June. Clean cardiac panel, no history. I am not accusing anyone of anything. I am telling you that a careful man died suddenly at a convenient time, and that I have worked in this industry long enough to know what convenience looks like when it wears a suit. He slid the envelope across the coffee table. "I promised him I would keep your name quiet until his daughter needed it. She needs it now." He stood. "Good night, Mr. Gallagher. Thank you for the coffee I didn't drink. He let himself out. Reed sat with the envelope on his lap for a long time. At 11, he called Elise. She answered on the first ring. They were on the phone for 27 minutes. They spoke for perhaps 4 of them. The rest was the quiet of 2 people who had each lost someone and who understood, without needing to say it, that silence between the right people is not empty. She did not ask if he was in. He did not say. When they hung up, both of them knew. He came in through the loading dock entrance on Houston Street every morning at 6:30, took the freight elevator to 4, and worked in the unmarked conference room until 3. He was out by 3:20. He was home before Cora's bus turned the corner onto Gage. For 9 days he built something careful. The first layer was structural. He compiled the full retrofit verification report for the Stony Creek Bridge, every load cycle projection, every stress model, every reinforcement point, and submitted it directly to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation for independent validation. The submission bypassed Hargrove's audit request entirely. A ministry-validated report would supersede any private engineering opinion, and it would be public record. Hargrove couldn't bury it, couldn't spin it, couldn't hire a friendly analyst to contradict it. The second layer was procedural. He drafted a protective governance amendment for Thornton Rowe's corporate charter, requiring a 75% supermajority of shareholders to approve any acquisition, merger, or asset transfer. The Thornton family, through Graham's estate and the trust instruments he had established in 1988, controlled 44% of voting shares. Embry, through his own holdings accumulated over 26 years, held another 8. Combined with 3 board members, Graham had cultivated relationships with over decades. They had enough to block any forced sale for the foreseeable future. The third layer was a tripwire. He built a fiduciary breach clause into the charter amendment. Any officer or director who transmitted internal documents to an outside party without unanimous board authorization would be automatically removed for cause, stripped of severance, and personally liable for damages. He built it for Jean-Marc Gagnon. On the 6th day, Embry delivered the server logs. 11 outbound emails over 8 months from Gagnon's workstation to a personal Gmail account. The Gmail account, when traced through 2 numbered Ontario corporations, resolved to a consulting firm wholly owned by Hargrove Partners. The 11th email, sent 9 days before Hargrove's most recent letter to the board, contained the company's internal bridge inspection schedule. Marked confidential, distribution restricted to 3 people. Reed did not call the police. That was not the fight in front of him. The fight in front of him was corporate, regulatory, and required a Thursday morning board meeting. On Wednesday night at 10, he went to the 4th floor to leave the final documents. Elise was standing at the window of her father's office, the corner office that looked out over the harbor and, past the harbor, the dark shape of the escarpment against the sky. He set the folder on the desk. She did not turn around. "He should still be here," she said. Reed stood a step back from her shoulder. He did not touch her. He tried. "That's why I'm standing in this room." She did not answer for a while. Then she said, "Go home to your daughter." He went home to his daughter. At midnight, his phone buzzed. A text from Elise. "I need your signature on 2 documents tomorrow. Notary can come to you. Morning works. 7:30? Good." He did not sleep well. At 7:30:15 on Thursday morning he was in the kitchen, the griddle warming, a bowl of batter beside the stove. He had made pancakes without deciding to. It was simply what his hands did on mornings that mattered. Cora came downstairs at 7:22 in the flannel pajamas with the bears on them, the ones she had picked out herself at the Hudson's Bay clearance rack and worn every 3rd night since. She stopped at the bottom of the stairs. "Daddy, there's a nice car outside." "I know, Peanut. Work thing. Good work thing." The doorbell rang. Cora got there first. She opened the door, looked up at the woman on the porch, and tilted her head the way she tilted it when she was processing something she had already decided she liked. "You're the lady from the Tim Hortons." Elise, who had not been expecting this, went very still. "Daddy told me," Cora said. "Mostly the part about the hot chocolate." "That's me," Elise said. You should come in, we're having pancakes. Elise came in. The notary, a patient man with a leather portfolio, arrived 8 minutes later, witnessed 2 signatures, accepted a cup of coffee, and was gone in under 10 minutes. After he left, no one moved to stand. Reed set a plate of pancakes in front of Cora. He set a plate in front of Elise, who was sitting in the chair across from her. He sat down with his own plate. "Do you like maple syrup?" Cora asked. "I do." "On top or on the side?" "On top." Cora nodded with the gravity of a person whose theory about the world had just been confirmed. "That's the right way." She told Elise about the rock collection. She told her about Mrs. Faria's soup and about the goat in the book who could predict rain. She told her about her friend Mika, who could do a cartwheel with her eyes closed, which Cora said was either very brave or not very smart, and she hadn't decided yet. Elise listened to all of it. When Reed set down his coffee mug, he set it down half a beat slower than the one before, and Elise, who was looking at him in exactly that moment, saw it and said nothing. They ate for 35 minutes. No one said the word Hargrove. No one said the word Gagnon. No one said the word bored. Through the kitchen window, the November light moved across the brick of the building next door in the slow, specific way that Thursday morning light moves when nothing is wrong. At 8:20, Elise said she needed to go. Cora walked her to the door, because Cora had decided that this was the kind of guest you walk to the door. When the car had pulled away, Cora turned to Reed. "Is she coming back?" He knelt down so they were eye to eye. "I don't know, Peanut. I hope so." She thought about it. "Me too," she said. Then she ran upstairs to brush her teeth. The Thornton Row board met at 9 on Thursday morning in the fourth-floor conference room with the walnut table and the rail yard view. 9 chairs, 7 board members, 1 non-voting observer, Martin Hargrove, in his capacity as beneficial owner of 11% of Class A shares, and Jean-Marc Gagnon, in his capacity as vice president of operations. Embry stood at the back of the room with a folder and a face that gave away nothing. Elise opened the meeting. She did not stand. She did not raise her voice. She read a short statement, 3 sentences, into the minutes. The Stony Creek Bypass Bridge retrofit verification report had been submitted to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation at 84 that morning. The ministry's preliminary acknowledgement, confirming receipt and initiating independent validation, was already on file. The report's author was a licensed professional engineer whose published research formed the basis of the retrofit protocol in question. There was a silence. Hargrove began to stand. A side door opened. Reed Gallagher walked in. He was wearing a dark suit that Elise had left in a garment bag on his porch the night before without mentioning it, and a white shirt he had pressed himself at 6 that morning. He carried 1 folder. He stopped at the corner of the table nearest the door. Elise said, "For the record, I would like to introduce the author of the retrofit assessment protocol cited in Hargrove Partners' structural liability claim." Mr. said, Reed Gallagher, P.Eng., formerly of Bridgewater Structural Associates. Hamilton, author of the 2019 Canadian Journal of Civil Engineering paper on retrofit reinforcement for post-tension concrete bridge spans. Hargrove's face did not change. Reed opened his folder. He set a printed copy of his paper on the table. "I wrote the protocol your claim is built on, Mr. Hargrove. I also wrote its verification. This is the first time I've seen both in the same room." Hargrove sat down. Elise nodded to Embry. Embry walked the length of the room and placed his manila folder in front of Gagnon. Gagnon opened it. He read for 6 seconds. Elise said, quietly, "You have until noon to clear your office. Legal will contact you by end of week. Security is outside." Gagnon stood. He did not speak. He left the room with his back straight and his face empty. Hargrove, looking at no one in particular, said, "I'd like to formally withdraw the proposal we submitted on the 19th. Elise said, "The minutes will reflect that." The board adjourned at 9:31. It had taken 31 minutes, 3 weeks after the Tim Hortons on Upper James, on a Thursday morning in late November. Elise Thornton walked Reed Gallagher down the corridor on the 4th floor. She stopped at the last door. It was an office that had not been occupied since October the 11th. She opened the door. She held out a small ring of keys. Chief Structural Officer, Vice President of Engineering. The board approved it this morning. Unanimous. Including the two members who were leaning toward Hargrove last spring. He took the keys. She said, "This isn't for the hot chocolate." He said, "I know." "Then what is it for?" "It's for the fact that you asked a stranger at a drive-thru for help on a night when, by every measure, you didn't need to, and that the stranger said yes on a night when, by every measure, he couldn't afford to." He went into the office. He did not sit at the desk. He walked the perimeter first, the way a person walks a room they expect to be in for a long time. He paused at the window. He paused at the bookshelf, which was still Graham's mostly empty of books, full of small objects no one had had the heart to box up. A framed photo of the Stony Creek Bridge on the day it opened, a ribbon across the span, Graham Thornton in a hard hat, smiling at someone just outside the frame. Reed sat down at the desk. He opened the top drawer, the reflex of a man taking a seat. Inside, neatly folded, was a $10 bill. Beside it, a small index card in Elise's handwriting. The date. The name of the Tim Hortons. Nothing else. She had never spent it. He looked at it for the count of 3. He did not pick it up. He closed the drawer. She, watching from the doorway, did not say anything either. That afternoon at 3:50, Cora Gallagher came through the lobby doors of the Thornton Row building in a red puffer coat, holding the hand of Victor Embry, who had picked her up from school because Elise had asked him to, and because Embry, who had no grandchildren of his own, had discovered that walking a child through important doors was one of the better uses of a Thursday afternoon. Elise was waiting in the lobby. She knelt so they were eye to eye. "Hi, Cora." "Hi." Cora looked at her for a long moment with the frank, unhurried attention that 8-year-olds reserve for people who matter. "Are we doing pancakes again on Saturday?" "I'd like that very much." "Same syrup rules?" "Same syrup rules." Cora nodded once, satisfied. Reed stood 2 steps back, watching. When Elise straightened, the back of her hand brushed the back of his for half a second, and they both looked at the floor. And neither of them said a word about it, and then the 3 of them walked together toward the elevator. He had given her his last $10 on a night he could not afford to. She had given him a place to belong on a morning she could not have built without him. Neither of them said the word for what it was. They had learned, both of them, that the things that lasted were rarely the ones that needed saying.